Morning, everybody. Thanks for being on our meeting today. I'm going to go ahead and start off like we normally do. Just have a moment of silence for those that have passed. Most recently comes to mind a deputy that we lost in Pierce County. So if we could just have a moment of silence for that deputy, his family, and law enforcement and fire folks all together. Thank you. All right, thanks, folks. First off is approval of December, January, and February minutes. We have a motion to adopt those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Did we get all those?
Yeah, are there any nays?
Okay. The ayes have it. Motion is adopted.
You might not have heard mine, but I said yes.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is the accountability audit results. And Steve, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. Board members, as you're aware, the Left 2 board is a little bit unique in that we have a financial audit annually, especially for small agencies. That's uncommon. In addition, though, to the annual financial audit, which all of you are familiar with, we periodically have an accountability audit from the state auditor's office. Those results frequently are just written, but we wanted to have the state auditor present the results to you at this meeting and give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions about some of the comments that the auditors had in their report. And with that, I will turn it over to the team from the auditor's office, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Thanks, Steve. My name's Eric, and I was the auditor who did the majority of the work on the audit. I believe Scott, I see Scott and Carol are here as well. Scott is our audit manager, and Carol was the assistant audit manager for this audit who supervised my work. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you can all see a presentation that says Exit Conference.
If you could, Eric.
Awesome. All right. And with that, again, good morning and thanks for giving us this opportunity to be here. One of the most important things about audits are our role to use them to increase trust in government. Our audits are able to do this because the public trusts our office as an independent organization that examines the operations of state and local governments. And another important role is to identify where there's places where efficiency can be improved or complying with laws and regulations. And, you know, there's places that things are working pretty well and effectively, and part of our job is just to say, hey, there's some things that can be adjusted and move forward from there. For your board, we conducted an accountability audit that covered the period of July 1st, 2017 through June 30th of 2021. And the purpose of the audit was to ascertain whether the board complied with state laws, its own policies, regulations, contracts, just basically the things that we would expect a state agency to comply with. In addition, these audits also look at whether in general the board has adequate controls to safeguard public funds. Under the heading Result in Brief, you'll see that our audit found the board's operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, its own policies, and provided adequate controls over safeguarding of public resources, that's all good. That's what we would want to see coming out of an accountability audit. To note, we did include a management letter as part of our report, and I'll walk through that in the coming slides. In selecting the specific areas for further review, we conducted a number of planning procedures that incorporated reviewing the meeting minutes for the governing body for the period, analyzing trends in your financial data, which included payroll and other vendors. We conducted risk assessments with several key staff and board members and other procedures. We utilize a risk-based approach to select areas for further testing based on those planning procedures, and included on the slide are the areas that we did look at. Specifically, payroll, accounts payable, the Open Public Meetings Act, and employee benefits were things that we really dove into on this audit. Next, we're going to walk you through the management letter. So before we begin, just note that management letters are not included in our audit reports, but they're just referenced. So it is a public document, but the item won't be published on our website. And in addition, we've included a copy of the cover page and the first page of the management letter on the slide today. So for your reference, you can find a full version of the letter in your exit packet. And we'll focus our presentation on the details of the letter shown on the second page. So management letters are designed to ensure those who are entrusted with governments are aware of an issue found during audit. You'll see that our topic of the management letter is the Open Public Meetings Act. As we previously shared, the board materially complied with laws and demonstrated its ability to safeguard public resources. During our review of board meeting minutes, we identified one meeting where the board entered into an executive session to discuss a general wage increase, which is not an allowed purpose for entering into an executive session, as this is a topic that came to light because of actions taken by board trustees and not the board employees. We are issuing the management letter to ensure the trustees are aware of the issue. We recommend that trustees receive, whenever OPMA training is conducted, an overview of what constitutes action and what topics are allowed to move into executive session. We also recognize the frustration of using technical language and moving into executive sessions. So we recommend having a quick reference guide available when announcing the purpose for those executive sessions. Before we move towards closing remarks, I did want to open it up and just say if anybody had questions about the management letter. Hearing none, I'm going to keep moving forward. So now that we've shared the results of the board's audit, we do have a few closing remarks to bring your attention to conclude our presentation. First, we're pleased to report that the cost of our engagement is expected to be within the estimate previously provided. And we thank the board for its timely responses to audit requests, which allowed our audit to progress efficiently and remain within our budget. So in addition, we've included information on the board's next audit, which for an accountability, normally it'll be in 4 years, but we'll see how that works out since the last one was 10 years. So hard to say when the next one will be. But you do have your financial statement audit that you plan on having later this year. Let's see here. Our report hasn't been published yet, but we expect to do so in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And if you haven't already, you can sign up to receive email notifications when reports are released, as well as other news articles or alerts, including our resources that the office publishes. Please note that in the past, as a courtesy, the email included a link to the report on our website. And also may have attached the final report as a PDF. So we've changed the practice in our way of communicating clearly with you on following. So we've changed it, but it's really to help with cybersecurity best practices. So we're trying not to add additional links and attachments to emails. So our correspondents will notify you when our reports are released and how to locate them on our website. In addition, we'll be sending you a customer service survey. We encourage you, as well as anyone else that participated in the audit, to complete the survey, as all feedback is helpful to improving our services and knowing how we can best meet your needs. All right, and almost the last slide. We just wanted to thank you again for your assistance with the audit. Especially wanted to thank Jessica Burkhart for her work on the audit and her especially quick turnarounds on requests, and they were especially quick. So very much appreciate her work on the audit. Last, this concludes our presentation to the board on our accountability audit results. We just wanted to thank everybody for your time today and participation. And at this point, we wanted to open it up for any last comments or questions from anybody.
Do any board members have questions for the audit team? Tim will be next up on the agenda with a presentation of what we are doing to implement the recommendations of the audit team. I also want to thank the team from the State Auditor's Office. Jessica had the same professional things to say about working with you, and felt that the process went very smoothly. So thank you as well.
Thanks, Steve. We're going to sign off now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, Tim, so you are up.
Thank you, Steve. For the record, Tim Valencia, Deputy Director for the Left 2 Board. This is item number 3 on today's agenda. And first, I did want to say thanks to the Auditor's Office. It was a very cooperative effort with them, which isn't always the case with audits. So I truly did appreciate that. And also for Jessica for her Herculean effort to make sure this audit went off very well indeed. So following the audit, we reviewed the auditor's recommendations and the information. We had discussions with them. Myself, Jessica, and Jesse have all met to discuss those items and how we are going to work to implement the recommendations. We certainly view the opportunities or the audit as an opportunity to get better, because you have an expectation of us to provide professional administrative support, and having strong internal controls and operations, we view that as part of meeting that expectation. So we certainly seek these audits as an opportunity to get better rather than something of concern, let's say. But we certainly always strive to follow all the state rules and regulations as much as possible. And so I'm going to share a screen here. So we did write up a response plan. Those that are familiar with full findings, normally an agency would have to return do an audit response. So we did something very similar. So addressing the first item, which is the primary thing that they discussed today, was the OPMA protocol from the May 2021 meeting. And we reviewed the guides provided by SAO, and what we determined is that the best way to make sure that we absolutely follow the proper protocols, and it's not that we were completely out of shape, but the way we executed could lead the appearance that we had improper discussions in public session. So we don't want to have that occur. So we will implement procedures to ensure that the chairman has some guides or notes for the process of announcing and then exiting the executive session. Tor, in his presentation this year, which will come up a little bit later in the interim, will specifically include the OPMA training recommended by the State Auditor's Office. And then lastly, we will review our internal procedures with regards to the documentation of the executive session in our minutes. There was part of their finding was there's some lack of clarity in the minutes on that, that we will put in a second review process for the minutes to ensure that the audio recording and actually matches, the minutes properly, just to make sure we have everything in proper order. So I think we'll be able to meet, all of the notes or the request by the auditor's office for improvement. The other three items that they did bring up to us were what they call verbal recommendations. These are just things they found. They aren't certainly findings. They're just going, yeah, this could have maybe been a little better. And really in this case, most of the time it just had to do with documentation, which is just internal procedure. So I appreciate the things that they brought to our attention, and clearly we're going to work on improving those. So the first one is that in the course of providing employee recognition awards, which is something that's allowed in statute for accomplishments and achievements from the board, that we just didn't have all of the documentation as clear as it should have been in the record. So we are going to review our policy and procedure for granting recognition awards, where we'll make sure we identify who's responsible for making sure the documentation is correct. And then ensuring that we're meeting the test as far as for granting recognition awards, which is spelled out in statute. We'll make sure that the documentation that we have to provide is included in the record and meets all the requirements of the statute. I can say that all the rewards that we did give out in the last year met all the requirements. We just didn't document them as clearly as they needed to be, or at least as clearly as the auditor felt they should be. The second one has to do with the procurement of out-of-state lodging, in particular when lodging exceeds 150% of the per diem under the state accounting manual. And again, this is one of those cases where, although we actually followed or applied all the proper rules to make it allowable to have lodging that was over 150%, again, just our internal procedures lacked on a few cases, did not have complete documentation. So in that case, we are working with our partners, DES, who manage all our accounting, one, to make sure that they're double checking that work and catching that when we are missing things. But on our side, we're also improving the procedures and the forms that we're using to make sure that it's very clear that we are applying the tests that are appropriate to determine if this is appropriate, and that there are records that will be included with all the paperwork that we file to DES as our accounting procedure. So again, that really was just a documentation issue and procedural from that standpoint. So we've already started to move to make sure that we're meeting all the tests in that particular area. The next one has to do with our CTR program. We've been utilizing the commute trip reduction program, which is available to, that has some statewide goals of reducing carbon emissions through providing a reward for utilizing methods such as carpooling or teleworking or whatnot. We've been participating in this program and have had a policy for allowing CTR for quite a while. With the advent of everybody having to telework under COVID, that then under our policy made everybody in the agency eligible to utilize CTR, because we're now all teleworking, and we're all all of a sudden not driving, so they qualified under the program's guidelines. In our view, we did do some research with, and we checked with some other agencies. We checked with OFM, but in the record, the auditor felt that we should have consulted some other bodies as we were looking at the permissibility, because there apparently is as we've discovered, a broader statewide question about the CTR program and its applicability during COVID. So in this case, we kind of were the canary in the coal mine. We raised a question and nobody really knew the answer because it hadn't actually been discussed. In subsequent talks with the auditor's office, they've contacted the Thurston Regional Planning Council and Washington State DOT, and since then have discovered, yeah, we're actually still within the realms of, our policy is still in the realm of appropriateness, and we're properly following our policy as it stands right now. So really, at worst, they're just saying, yeah, we probably should have investigated a little bit further. But in the end, we were not out of compliance with anything. So this was really just a procedural thing. But in response, we will continue to, since we know this is now an ongoing discussion about the commute trip reduction programs, we'll continue to communicate with the Thurston Regional Planning Commission about any changes to CTR allowances. And as needed, we will update our policy and guidelines. And the last item, again, was a documentation item, and this had to do with there's a state RCW that says that when recognition awards are given, that agencies are required to report that to OFM, because OFM reports or creates a public report that just shows out all of the public rewards given. We talked with our partners over at DES and discovered that this is actually something that they were supposed to have been doing on our behalf as our accounting team, but just because of some of their internal systems, it wasn't caught and was not reported. So it's not actually something that we did inappropriately, but it's still our responsibility. So we've already met with our friends over at DES, and they will now be reporting, identifying those and reporting those. That'll be much easier because of the earlier item. We're going to improve our documentation of recognition awards. So, but that will be something that will be included in our documentation as their responsibility to report that on our behalf. So those are all the items from the audit, and that is our plan to respond to each of those. And I think that meets the recommendations of the auditors. So with that, I will be happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have questions for Tim? Okay. Next up on the agenda then is a review of session. And Jacob will be doing that. Jacob, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you now.
Okay, good morning. This will be our wrap up of the 2022 legislative session. Get everything going. Okay, so I'll start with the bill that I know everyone's most interested in, the Left to Benefit Improvement Bill, House Bill 1701. It was successful in passing the legislature. Should go ahead and do a shout out to our sponsor of the bill, Rep. Berquist. The bill is still awaiting signature by the governor. There are 20 calendar days after the end of session for bills to get signed by the governor. And so session ended on March 10th, so we still have a little ways to go to hit that 20 days. So I just wanted to quickly go over once again, kind of high level what this bill does. I know we've been receiving a lot of questions, so just thought it'd be a good reminder for the board and anyone listening. This bill purchases the left to benefit improvements using the benefit improvement account. Those benefits include for members who were retired as of February 1st, 2021, they receive a one-time lump sum payment of $100 per month of service credit. And there's a minimum payment of $20,000 to duty death beneficiaries and duty disability retirees. For members who are new to Left to after that February 1st, 2021 date, they received an increased multiplier from 2 to 2.5% for their years of service between 15 and 25. And then for members who are active in Left to at that February 1, 2021 date, they will have the option between those two benefits. The most popular question I've received is when do we get these benefit improvements? And so that's spelled out in the bill that those benefit improvements will begin by January 16th, 2023. And then in addition to the benefit improvements, the bill also freezes Left to contribution rates through the 2025 fiscal year. However, lower rates may still be adopted by the board. And then also it transfers funds from the benefit improvement account in order to pay for these benefit improvements. It also puts the current Left to minimum rate funding policy into statute while creating an offset to ensure that the cost of the benefit improvements does not result in an increase to the plan's contribution rates. And then there were a series of amendments that I went over with the board previously. Just wanted to remind you of the one amendment that was not technical. And that was that it provides that if the plan funded status is greater than or equal to 110%, the minimum rate is equal to 80% of the normal cost. And then, like I said, the board's received a lot of calls and emails on this bill. And instead of getting into them now, we will be doing a presentation next month to follow up on this and discuss some of the questions and the implementation plan for the bill. We've already been communicating a lot with DRS about next steps. Next bill is House Bill 1752, which was the Roth option for DCP. This also passed the legislature and is awaiting a signature by the governor. This bill was sponsored by Representative Stokesbury, who's on the Select Committee for Pension Policy. Once again, a reminder of what this bill does. It creates a Roth 457 option for participants in the state's DCP plan. And that's not just left two members, it's all members. So Roth option allows for post-tax contributions to be made by participants, and then those contributions along with the investment returns are not taxed when a member withdraws them from the plan. For left two members to participate in DCP, their employer has to opt into DCP. And not all left two employers have done so, so this won't be a benefit available to all left two members. And lastly, interruptive military service credit. So this bill was intended to expand no-cost interruptive military service credit to members who earned an expeditionary medal. Currently, it's limited to a higher medal level, a campaign badger medal. This bill did not pass this session. There you can see what the votes were, where it last was before it died. So far, I did not hear any issues with the bill during session. It just seemed to kind of run out of steam with the short session. And then there was the budget. The left two state contributions were fully funded in the budget. And then also just wanted to let you know that the administration of the two left two bills were fully funded in the budget. And then also thought it might be of interest. I know there's been some members have heard, and we've been receiving questions about wait times at DRS over the last year or two. And so DRS did put in a budget request for more FTEs. They did not receive funding for all of the FTEs. Their budget request was for 22.5, and instead they received 11.3 FTEs. And then there were a few other bills I thought might be of interest. The main one being the left one benefit improvement bill. And so this bill provided the same lump sum benefit that retirees in left two are receiving. Left one retirees would also receive that benefit. And that did pass the legislature, and it is also awaiting the governor's signature. And then there were two select committee bills that I thought may be of interest or maybe of something that members heard about. Those both passed and have been signed by the governor. And that was a PCERS disability benefits, which provides a similar disability benefit as left two members, similar benefit as a catastrophic disability benefit that left two members receive. And then there was a COLA bill for PERS and TERS 1. So that ends my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Are there any questions for Jacob? All right. Cruising right along. Next up on the agenda is a topic that comes up to the board with some regularity, but for a lot of you, this may be the first time that you've dealt with it. That has to do with administrative factors. You will be asked to adopt new administrative factors at the next board meeting. But today there's Jacob's going to give you an introduction to which administrative factors are up for change and kind of the background on this topic in general. With that, I'll turn it over to Jacob.
Okay, so the board has authority to adopt administrative factors. DRS adopts these factors for all the other plans. The board will vote on adoption of new factors next month. This presentation is to just go over what admin factors are, how they are used, and review the impacts of the new proposed factors. The factors were last adopted in 2018. If the new factors are adopted by the board next month, they would go into effect on December 1st. And we've been speaking to DRS, their project team that implements new factors, and members would be able to see the impact of the new factors in June through DRS, which would give them 6 months to make a decision. Sometimes that spurs people on to either make a payment they've been thinking about, or to retire if they want to use those existing factors instead of the new factors. So what are administrative factors? Administrative factors convert benefits into different forms. The factors are applied to optional benefit calculations and purchases, and the benefits of administrative factors are that they provide more ways to provide the same amount of money to members, and they give members flexibility with how they receive their benefits without increasing costs to the plan. Often members refer to admin factors as reductions. You've probably heard referred to as, how, in terms of how much of a reduction do I need to take if I am going to retire early. So what you're really talking about there is the administrative factor. And so how do the actuary's office develop these? Here's a chart that I borrowed from them that shows that they're developed using the economic assumptions and the demographic assumptions that the board has already adopted. There are two types of benefits where admin factors are used. The first is the reduction factors, and these reduce the monthly pensions to pay for optional benefits like early retirement and the joint and survivor benefits. And then there are also the annuity factors, which convert between a one-time and lifetime payment. Examples of that include purchase service credit, purchase of additional annuity, and then we're going to have a new one under this, the lump sum benefit available through the benefit improvement bill that passed this session, had the option to purchase an annuity with those funds. So a little more detail about the joint and survivor options. They reduce a member's benefit to provide an ongoing benefit for their survivor. There are 3 types of survivor benefits available under Left 2 and all the other plans. These are under these, the survivor gets either 100%, 2/3, or half of the benefit received by the retiree while they were alive. The retiree's pension benefit is reduced using an administrative factor so that the same amount of money, or with the goal at least of the same amount of money being paid over the member and their survivor's lifetimes that would have been paid just under the member's lifetime. So here's a chart with the 3 J&S options and the current and proposed administrative factors. This chart is based on the beneficiary being 3 years younger than the member. The result, as you can see, is it's slightly larger reduction for the member than under the current admin factors. The factor works by taking the member's benefit amount and multiplying it by the admin factor number. So there in that last column, you get to look at the percentage change from the current factors and the updated factors. And then here are a couple of charts with more detail, including some examples with dollar amounts. The first chart is a continuation of the example on the previous page, except the second line shows the dollar impact of to a monthly benefit of $5,000. So you can see when you take that 5,000 and multiply it by the factor, what the dollar amount is. And then in the last column, what the change is from the current factors to the updated ones. And this is why I said DRS at the beginning of the presentation. The DRS makes an effort to get this information out and make it available to members as soon as possible, since it will impact their benefit. If they're close to retiring, they may choose to retire and get the current factors. And then in the second chart is the same joint survivor 100% benefit, except we've changed from 3 years to 20 years younger. The survivor beneficiary is 20 years younger than the member. And as you see here, the percentage change is larger, goes from 2.2% to 3.6%. Okay. So service credit restoration factors. These factors are used to calculate the cost of the increase in a member's benefit if they restore prior service credit. Used when a member has to pay the full actuarial cost, not when it's subsidized. So for instance, we've been talking a lot the last couple of years about the interruptive military service credit. Those are examples of where it's either fully subsidized or partially subsidized. And there are other times where this may be subsidized, but here's where the member has to actually pay the full actuarial amount. So actuaries have to make assumptions like when the member will retire and how much their salary will increase over the remainder of their career, since these are not purchased at retirement. So next group of admin factors are the annuity factors. Annuity factors convert a lifetime monthly benefit to a lump sum, or vice versa, a lump sum to a monthly benefit. And that's usually the more common one, is taking a lump sum and purchasing a lifetime monthly benefit with it. The purchase and calculation are made at retirement. It applies to the purchase of additional pension. So left two benefits that use this are the purchase of service credit or the purchase of an additional annuity. So here is a chart that shows the current factors and the proposed factors at 4 different retirement ages. To use the factor, you multiply the lump sum amount that you have by the factor to get to convert it to a monthly benefit amount. The last column shows the percentage change between the current factors and the proposed ones. So here we have some charts with examples with dollar amounts to help you see this more clearly. So these are taken using a lump sum amount of $100,000 to purchase the monthly benefit. And so the first one we have at age 57. And then there's on that one, there's a change between the current factors and the proposed ones of $23. And then the second chart we have is someone also with $100,000 purchasing an annuity, but at age 53, and there it's the same change of $23 to what their monthly benefit will be. So admin factors are intended to be actuarially equivalent, meaning that they do not have a cost or a savings to the plan. However, experience can be different. Members may live longer than the actuaries expect. The investment returns can have can be lower, and members may anti-select based on their health. And I'll talk a little more about that in another slide. What happens if the factors aren't actuarially equivalent? The costs or savings are passed on to current members and employers, and there's no true up for those who retire. They get to purchase it, and there's no opportunity for them to make changes to what they pay or receive. Okay, so anti-selection may lead to system risk. Admin factors are designed so that positive and negative experiences will offset in the long run. And anti-selection occurs when a higher cost group makes more purchases than a lower cost group, but at the price for the average. And so an example of this is that only healthy people convert say they take their DCP money, convert it to an annuity. If only the healthiest left two members do that, that would be anti-selection, and it would result in an overall cost to the plan. So next steps, like I said at the beginning of this, next month, the board will vote on the adoption of new factors. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or any additional information that board members would like to see that I could work with the actuaries to provide you at next month's meeting. And I want to thank the actuaries. Those charts all come from the actuaries, and appreciate their help with preparing me for this presentation. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Jacob on the administrative factors? All right, good job, Jacob.
Thank you, Jacob.
Next up is sort of this is the start of the interim. Your board work is never done. It just goes through cycles. As soon as one session ends, you start working on the next one. And Jacob will give you an update over kind of all the different administrative, legislative, and actuarial responsibilities that you have as a board, and kind of what's on schedule for the interim. With that, I will
do
take
math
it, turn
in
it
his
over to Jacob.
presentation, and I talked about this morning. It's like a little because
Tammy, I don't know if you're trying to talk to me or if you or accidentally off mute. Okay. Okay. So purpose of this presentation, like Steve said, is to go over our draft interim plan, including benefit topics, actuarial topics, and administrative topics. The board will take a vote next month on adoption of the plan, and that plan can always be changed if topics come up. Today is an opportunity for board members to bring up any additional topics that you would like to see included in the plan. So the benefit topics that are currently identified for the interim agenda include interruptive military service credit. Like I said in the legislative wrap-up, this bill that the board endorsed did not pass this session. We could look at that topic again and decide whether to once again endorse legislation for the upcoming session. benefit improvement follow-up. I also mentioned this one. We've been receiving a lot of questions and a lot of interest, and I'm sure all of you have too. So this will be an opportunity to go over some of those questions, ask any questions you have, and provide updates to the board on the implementation plan moving forward for the benefit improvement. Then we also have a survivor option re-election follow-up. So there was this was a bill passed, endorsed by the bill a couple sessions ago. It has been implemented now at Department of Retirement Systems, so we wanted to go over that. And then when the board did endorse this legislation, there was originally a question of, so this one did a short window right after a member retires and they receive their first pension payment, to change their survivor option, because there had been issues with people, their pension benefit looking different than they expected and wanting, having some regret over what they had chosen, wanted to change that. So this opens up a brief window for them to do that after receiving their first pension payment. But the board had also considered the possibility of creating another window for members to change that survivor option election if there is an issue such as an audit is done and that makes a change to a member's benefit that and usually those audits would have, be no fault of the member. It would be something on the employer side, something that was reported incorrectly to DRS. And that could, in some cases, have a pretty significant change to a member's benefit. And so the thought was that that perhaps they should have the ability to make a new survivor option selection at that time. So we have that on the agenda to update on both those issues. And then career change. This is a possible educational briefing. This is a topic that's been in front of the board many times. This is the current kind of retiree return to work is what it's called in other plans, but for but in left 2, it's called the career change law. So just an educational briefing on where that stands today and any possible issues or concerns there may be around that. And then this has been another hot topic of questions I've received from members, inflation. So wanting to provide a possible educational briefing to left 2 board members on inflation and the left 2 COLA. Also, some other possible issues include an update on DRS rulemaking coordination. We've spoke to the board about that at least last year, if not the last couple of years. So just update you on the status of that. And then this one was just brought up yesterday by a member or last week by a member, and that's an issue regarding purchasing of service credit. Current law allows for a the widow of someone who dies in military service to purchase service credit. But that same benefit is not extended to other situations, such as a non-duty death. So if someone is an active left 2 member, have a non-duty death, their widow is not allowed to purchase service credit. So taking a look at that issue and seeing if that policy distinction makes sense or is something the board would like to consider changing. So that wraps up benefit topics. Move on to actuarial topics. The one we started today, adoption of administrative factors. And then also we have results of the actuarial valuation, which our actuaries have been working very hard on. And then contribution rate adoption. Contribution rates have already been adopted by the board for next biennium. However, you may want to, the board may want to adopt rates next biennium or make changes to the rates for the current biennium. The benefit improvement bill, as I went over, includes some provisions around this. So the board may want to consider those as well. And then last, administrative topics. So interim planning, which we're in the middle of right now. And then AGO training on Open Public Meetings Act. We have agency operating budget, DRS, CEM benchmarking, the DRS annual update, and the State Investment Board Director's annual update. And then the board strategic planning and board expectations, which is always in October. So that completes my presentation, and now is just an opportunity if there are any other items that any board members would like to discuss or have added to the plan. Thank you.
Any questions for Jacob? Comments? All right, thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is the administrative update. This is got a couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Outreach activities will begin. We don't have anything that has taken place since our last board meeting, and we don't have anything scheduled in the short term, in the near term. I think the State Council of Firefighters Educational Seminar in Vancouver is the next scheduled event at which the board will have some team members present to answer questions about board activities. The couple of things, though, related now to COVID coming to an end and businesses getting back to whatever the new normal looks like. First off, we spoke to you last month about hybrid board meetings. We did consult with the State Investment Board. We did a testing of some technology that would allow for a hybrid board meeting where some of the board members could be present if they wanted to be, and other board members could attend remotely if they wanted to be. You'd be able to all see the same materials at the same time, and you'd be able to hear the discussion in the boardroom even if you were attending remotely. That test was successful. And so we have approval from the State Investment Board to use their board room in April, and we could use the technology that we have in place to do a hybrid meeting or begin these kind of hybrid board meetings starting next month in April. That was already something that the board had indicated to us that you wanted to do. So there's no need for a vote or anything like that. To the extent that there are new procedures for you in terms of attending the meeting and what that will look like, we will get those out to you in advance of the April meeting. But I wanted to let you know that the April meeting will be a hybrid meeting. Public will have the ability to attend. There's going to be some public access things that the team is going to have to take care of in terms of helping with that flow. But all of the additional notice requirements and all of the additional, especially technical and sign-in requirements, we will be providing to you in advance of the next meeting. Similarly, but different, the office. We are returning to the office. A lot of public employers are dealing with this exact same issue. How do you come back to the office, and who needs to come back to the office and how much? We did a survey of all of our team members to get their preferences about regarding telework, and we'll be incorporating that as much as possible. There's a very strong preference for team members to continue to work remotely. But beginning in April, sometime in April, the plan is to get to a situation where everybody's back in the office 3 days a week, and that there's people in the office during business hours, Monday through Friday. That's the hybrid model that we intend to implement. And we're working with the team now on kind of putting that work schedule together, and I'll have an update for you on that at the April board meeting. One possible caveat to that is, as I'm sure you're aware, there are some concerns about another COVID surge potentially on the horizon. So we will be coordinating with OFM and state health guidelines as appropriate. So if there is a delay in the implementation of the hybrid work plan for that reason, I'll let you guys know about that as well, and we can discuss it in April. But that is the next step on the return to the office plan. I imagine once we start that, we're going to evaluate how it's going and bring any recommendations to the board or to the administrative committee for changes or how that plan is working and what can be done to make it work better for the board and for the team. The final administrative item that I wanted to mention is we've talked in the past about DRS communicating with catastrophically disabled members regarding their continued eligibility for their benefits. And I think we told you that DRS plans to do some financial reviews this upcoming year and begin medical reviews next year. And I just want to give you a heads up, the financial review piece will be beginning in the near future. And so letters may be going out to members in the event that you hear about that. The department has worked with us to share their drafts and their plans, and the cooperation on this new review process has been everything that we could have asked for as far as board staff. So they've kept us very aware of what's going on and when, and given us the opportunity to provide input at every stage. So that concludes the administrative update. I wasn't sure if it was 100% clear when we were talking earlier about the interim plan, but if there are any other topics that the board wants to discuss, any new business or anything like that, now is the time to do that, and then we can kind of get involved. We can, you can always do it at any meeting, but before our next step on the interim plan, we want to give you guys a chance to provide input. Senator Holy, I see you've got your hand up.
So I probably should have touched on this during Jacob's interim planning. I'm not sure exactly where it fits. Steve, are you, two points to frame this conversation, Counselor. One of them is, I'm going to quote Senator Jim West from a very long time ago when he said that Olympia is best viewed from your rear view mirror. And I say amen to that. Thank God we're out of that. Yeah, Tora, amen to that. But the other part is during a condensed session like we just had, I had some strange conversations with people, and one of them was Senator Warnick. who's, past member of the board, reference a member in her district that evidently had a PTSD issue that was strung out over a series of litigations over a very long period of time that had a financial exhaustion result rather than a conclusion as a matter of decision by the courts. Steve, are you aware of this at all?
Yeah, I know the case you're talking about. I'm not there. Like you mentioned, there were some policy issues. Some of them may have been resolved prospectively. Some may be unresolved. That is something we could give you guys kind of a brief, not so much about that person specifically, but maybe about the topic. Early on, particularly before PTSD, the changes were made, and shortly after, the board implemented disability benefits and catastrophic disability benefits. As DRS was sort of implementing all of that, there were a number of questions, and I think the case that you're talking about ended up being a bit of a test case for a lot of those questions, and maybe not entirely to the benefit of the member. So I am familiar with that. We can give you guys kind of a brief update on what, if anything, is unresolved from that situation.
Mr. Chair, to continue, one more question, follow up. Could you put, like I said, I had a whole conversation on this, and I had all of about 2 minutes explaining what this issue was in the course of talking to the left to benefit legislation with Senator Warnick. Could you put together rather a little bit of an educational, more than just a quick briefing, a little bit of an educational outline of how this transpired, and possibly is there something we need to do to act upon this type of situation?
Yeah, we could do that. I'm not 100% sure we can have that available for April, but possibly, and at the very least, we can have something for the board by May.
Perfect. Thank you.
AJ, I see you got your hand up too.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if everybody is okay with changing the June meeting from the 22nd to the 15th. Dennis and I are both going to be at a conference.
Yeah, okay, I see. It would take a board motion to change the meeting date from the 22nd to the 15th. I was asked to look into that by Dennis in advance of the meeting. And step one is we've been trying to find out whether the SIB boardroom is available on the 15th. They tend to keep their schedule open and available around our schedule. I don't know that we can answer that question today, or so if you guys can take a look at your calendars to see if you are available on the 15th, we could ask you to vote on that at the April meeting. Would that?
Yeah, I think that would be the best idea, Steve. Let's just, if everybody could look, because I think we need 20 days notice to change the meeting. So if we could just everybody look, and then in April we could discuss it.
Yeah, we'll flag that, AJ, as a question for the board at the April meeting. The possibility of rescheduling the June meeting to June 15th. And we'll send that out maybe by email to all the board members ahead of time. Make sure everybody's got that captured. Let's see, did anybody else have any topics that you wanted to bring to the attention of the board for possible consideration? Okay.
I don't see any other hands, Steve.
Yep. The next meeting then is April 27th. And with that, Mr. Chair, I think my business is done.
All right, thank you, Steve. Before we adjourn, just want to double check with everybody. Is anything else for the good of the order? I don't see any other hands. The board moves for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
So moved. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, everybody.